The GOP has now debuted their big plan for dealing with inflation in America with H.R. 347, something called the Rein-In Act, a reporting requirement related to a handful of executive orders every year is the GOP's response to inflation after barnstorming the entire country, claiming that they had some kind of solution. Now, you might think it's the most brilliant thing since the invention of Social Security, which they opposed, or Medicare, which they opposed, or you might think it's the dumbest thing since Donald Trump's last trillion-dollar corporate tax giveaway, but either way, it will have zero effect on inflation or deflation in the United States of America. You know, after 2 years of rooting for economic failure and blaming President Biden for everything, for post-COVID global inflation, for the instability caused by supply chain breakdowns and the phenomenal failure of Donald Trump's mismanagement of the coronavirus pandemic. After all that, after all the whining and crying about inflation, Republicans finally have the chance to take center stage right now with their proposed solution to the problem of inflation. And the world's been waiting with bated breath. Would it be what Richard Nixon did? Wage and price controls? Would it be what Herbert Hoover, that Republican, did? Total laissez-faire? Whatever happens, happens. Well, the long wait is over. The GOP has now debuted their big plan for dealing with inflation in America with H.R. 347, something called the Rein-In Act, which stands for the Reduce Exacerbated Inflation Negatively Impacting the Nation Act. It's a bill for a mandatory reporting requirement related to executive orders that might apply to 2 or 3 executive orders a year. You got that right. It will have zero effect on inflation or deflation in the United States of America. Nothing. It's not going to have any effect at all. Now, I know our friends in the GOP are interested in this session of Congress in tortured, inscrutable, incomprehensible acronyms, and so they can have the Rein-In Act, which they seem very connected to, but I want to suggest a better title that will still conform to their acronym. Let's call it the Running on Empty Initiative based on No Ideas None Act. How about that? The legislation was hatched without any hearing, and it shows it has no legislative meaning and no potential economic consequences. Even as reporting bills go, it's pathetically weak, as it doesn't even require publication of the report. They came up with a reporting requirement that didn't even require the report to be published. Look, executive orders are not the cause of inflation, and there is no economic research suggesting they are. The most conservative economists in the world will tell you that inflation is a complex global phenomenon connected to prices, supply chains, supply and demand curves, and unemployment rate. So, Democratic policies have allowed the U.S. to absorb the shock of rising inflation engulfing the globe since 2020. That's serious economic policy, what President Biden and the Democrats are engaged in, and they have a silly little symbolic messaging bill for a couple of notations they didn't even want to publish originally within the process of offering executive orders. We created 12 million new jobs in America. How many million jobs do they want to erase over there in their desperate, sudden pursuit of inflation? You know, they raised the debt limit 3 times under Donald Trump. Now they talk about the debt limit all the time. They raised it 3 times, and they contributed under Donald Trump 25% of all the debt in the United States from George Washington to Joe Biden. 25% of the debt under one president, Donald Trump. And they did that. And now they dare come talk to us about inflation. And the bill that they advance is one to have some people pass some more paperwork around. Come on, give me a break. Give us something better than the running on empty initiative with no new ideas at all. We recommend a no vote. What real economic action requires is precisely what President Biden is already doing.